to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amour de Soi Wellness. And Donovan Jensen is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Happy Talks. My name is Dr. Alice, and this is my awesome co-host, Donovan. And today we have a special guest, Heather Vickery. She is a achiever of unrealistic dreams, success coach, author, podcaster, and founder of the Everyday Brave Revolution. Please welcome Heather. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you both so much for having me.
Of course. Excellent. Well, we're excited to have you and learn a little more about your story. So why don't we just dive into it? And if you could tell us a little about your story, what led you into doing this work around bravery and what inspired you to do that?
Thank you. So I always tease that brave is my business all across the board, but we don't just decide one day we're going to create something like that. We tend to fall into it in one way
of course,
or another. In my brave origin, so I will go back even just a little bit further and say that fresh out of college, I learned very quickly that while I worked well with people, I did not work well for people. And I started my own business. And so I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all of my adult working life. So I sort of tackled that brave thing very early on. But then I did all the things I was supposed to do. I ran a successful business. I got married to somebody of the opposite gender. We had 4 beautiful children. We had a big, beautiful home, all of the things that on paper look enviable and all of the things that you want. And as I was moving through my life, I started to notice that there was less and less of me there, that I was making lots of fear-based decisions, and I was playing really small, and I was incredibly painfully unhappy. And what eventually came to surface after lots and lots of self-discovery work and therapy was that I was married to the wrong gender.
Oh,
yeah. And to be fair, we don't get married to get divorced. I tried to figure out, how to quote unquote work it out. And it doesn't work. At least for me, it did not work. Because it's not about sex. It's not about anything. It's about your inner purpose and truly living the life that you want to live. And so there was this one moment that was the precipice of all of the brave for me. Was breakfast one day, looking across the breakfast table at all 4 of my daughters, who were really quite small. The youngest was an actual infant at the time, and feeling so small and so afraid. Every decision I made was fear-based. What's going to be the least scary thing? What's going to cause the least conflict? And I just felt awful. And I thought, what would I say to any of my kids if they came to me in a similar situation? And I knew right away that I would not say, well, suck it up. You made your bed, now sleep with it. You've got to just keep going. You made your choices. I would say, baby girl, go out and own the world. The world is waiting for you to show up and play big. You are meant for more than this. And then I went, oh, fuck. If that's what I would want them to do, I have to show them how.
Right.
But something switched in that moment from fear-based to limitless possibility. Something about knowing that if I stepped up into my own bravery, if I embraced my own fears, that I would be showing them that they have the capacity to do the same thing. That made anything possible for me. So I burned my whole life to the ground. Essentially, I finally got a divorce. I closed a really thriving, successful event planning business to move into coaching. Coaching found me. I took all of the steps that I used to transform and rebuild my life. And I've created what I call the Brave Method, which is a problem solving and creative strategic approach to dreaming, designing, building, and actually having a life that you love. And if you're an entrepreneur, having your business fit your life instead of the other way around. And yeah, I started a couple of podcasts. I've written a couple of books, and Brave is my business. And I'm here. I heard you say, and I love it. I have achieved countless unrealistic dreams, and there are hopefully so many more ahead of me. And believing in our ability to achieve unrealistic dreams is what Brave is based on. It's not fearlessness. It's not lack of fear. It's just acknowledging your fears and taking them apart and getting to know them and then choosing to do the thing anyway, or shifting how you're going to approach the thing. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded.
No,
That's great. I love the, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. I just
I love
wanted to
this.
say it was beautiful. So there you go.
Basically what I was going to say too is I love the story and hearing sort of this big transition, because, you know, you hear all the time, and I'm sure it's the type of people that you end up working with or helping that have sort of done what you said in terms of, I made my bed, now I'm going to sleep in it and just have this life that I don't really enjoy. And I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing because I don't see the option or don't have enough, like we've been talking about, like bravery to move through the fear and sort of move towards something that's going to be better. So to follow up, I would be curious, sort of, you know, you mentioned you were at this inflection point with, you know, looking at your children and feeling sort of this tension between the two different, where you could potentially see your lives and where you were. What was it, or what were some of the like first steps that got you past that? Was it enough to just see your kids and be like, okay, I have to do this for them? Or did you have tools from like when you moved into entrepreneurship? I would just be curious, like what pieces you were using to sort of start that journey.
Absolutely. The first answer to that is, first, you know, I know from my own experience and from countless clients' experiences, awareness is our greatest tool. And that first step was being aware of what the hell I was afraid of. What I asked myself, I asked my clients, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, what's the best thing that could happen? And on that, you know, everything's a little fluid. What's the most likely scenario? What's maybe in the middle of that? And is the thing I'm really afraid of, it's almost never what we say we're afraid of, right? When it came to sort of burning my life down, what I was afraid of was that people wouldn't like me anymore, that I would get judged, that my kids would be totally fucked up, which, you know, whatever. I guess all of our kids are, we're all fucked up. All of our kids are fucked up. Everybody should go to therapy. But you know what, they would hate me forever, all of these sorts of things. And when you take that apart, you know, it's really about belonging and being accepted. And it depends on our behavior. So those things, some of those things might happen. I had, fortunately, I feel very fortunate. Only one person in my entire life has completely cut themselves off for me since I came out. Everybody else has said, oh, okay, cool. Like, you know, my grandparents who were super homophobic and racist were like, well, we really don't understand, but we love you and you're ours. So I guess we'll just figure it out. And they did, you know? And I know that that's not the case for everyone. I feel really lucky about that, but we get to decide, like, how are we going to tell our story? How are we going to engage with people? Compensating. Sometimes we overcompensate, but I apologize to my kids all the time. I know that the divorce has caused pain for them. And I wish that it didn't, but I'm also not sorry for the decisions that I've made. I made the right decisions for me, and I believe for them. As my teenage daughter recently said, you can't know that for sure. She's right. I can't know for sure that it was the right decision for someone else, but I can know that it was the right decision for me. And as a parent, I believe that making the best decision for me is the best decision for them. That's all we can do. So to answer your question, Donovan, is really getting honest about what it is that you want. That's the number one tool, being aware of what are you afraid of? What is it that you want? And how can you start taking small intentional steps towards it? It doesn't have to be this big, amazing, grand jump off the cliff thing. You can do these things in small incremental parts. I came out to folks, and I didn't intend for this whole episode to be about my queerness, but I came out to folks one at a time. And I remember every time my heart would pound and I would be hot in my neck, in my throat, and I would be a little bit sweaty. And the best way I can describe it is every time I would do it, it would feel a little bit less like that. And I would take a little bit more of a deep breath until eventually one day I could do it without all of that trauma. And I was fully breathing for the first time, and I didn't know I was holding my breath. Wow. That's not unique to people in the closet. Lots of people feel that way. People who are victims of patriarchy, people who have come from super strict religious backgrounds, people who just maybe don't feel that they have worth or value, but they want more, right? When we start to strive for more and go after more, we often feel that shame and that fear and that we're so afraid someone's going to reject us and we're not going to be good enough. But dipping your toe in and moving slowly is how you move through that fear. You take it with you. It doesn't go away. You just take it with you and you say, I'm the boss of you.
Wow, that was beautifully expressed. I really enjoyed your story of coming out. And what I really appreciated was that you really had a dialogue with your children and you acknowledged that yeah, divorce is going to be painful and it could hurt them, but ultimately it is for their betterment, but in you being happy and being fully self-expressed and not living like a fear-based life is a role model. And maybe I don't know if they get it now, but they
Not
will get
always.
it at some point.
I
I'm
think
pretty
so.
sure.
I have to hope that.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
want to remind folks, and this is something that I consistently come back to, is people will love and respect each of us to the degree that we love and respect ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it all has to start with feeling that you are
Mhm.
valuable and worthy of love and respect.
Right. Yeah. Great. And is that like kind of what you described? Is that kind of the general basis of your brave method, or is there anything else you want to elaborate on?
Well, Donovan, I think you will appreciate this. The BRAVE method is an acronym. And
Oh,
so
I love
BRAVE
acronyms.
stands for BRAVE stands for boundaries, what I
Mm,
call the 3 R's: reassessment, reframing, and resilience.
mhm,
Action, accountability, vulnerability, and then expand and empower. And I'll start with that one because that's the result
mhm,
of choosing a brave life. Expansion and empowerment are inside jobs. These are gifts that you can only give to yourself. No one else can do it. I call full bullshit on anybody who says, oh, I empower people to do X, Y, and Z. No, you don't. You might inspire and mentor and coach and guide and teach, but the empowerment, that's inside work. We get that when we show up for ourselves. And when we do that, we expand. And so it doesn't have to go in order, but it worked with my BRAVE acronym.
Yes.
But by setting boundaries, which are limits that define acceptable behavior, and the BRAVE add-on is that you get to decide what's acceptable, not society, not your partner, not your parents. You get to decide what's acceptable. When we set really clear and concrete boundaries, everyone knows what to expect, right? People can't give you what you want if they don't know what it is. You can't give yourself what you want if you don't know what it is. So boundaries really are our key to guilt-free freedom. And then the 3 R's are my favorite: reassessment, reframing, and resilience. Really checking back in with yourself consistently. How do I feel about this? What's working? What's not working? Am I getting what I want? Have I changed my mind about what I want? What were my lessons? That's the word I use for mistakes. What were my lessons? What do I want to do with what I've learned from these lessons? And then resiliency, which, Angela Duckworth is a badass, right? This work around resilience is the number one key indicator on whether or not someone will be successful. It's not talent and skill. You can gain talent and skill. You can learn that. It's resiliency. It's whether or not you get up and do it. You can learn that too, by the way. It doesn't you don't have to just be born with it. Right. And then getting into action, doing it, showing up, being accountable, having other people help you be accountable, delegating, right? Just because you can do it all doesn't mean you should do it all. And then doing it really authentically and honestly, and from this deep place of vulnerability. That's how we expand and empower ourselves. So there you go.
Yeah, I love the whole acronym and just all the different pieces that go into it, because it gives people a nice map for sort of different areas that they can start looking at and exploring. I had a question around sort of like, let's say that I come to you, right? And I don't know what people typically come to you for, so my example is going to be horrible, but let's say I come to you with some sort of problem or whatever else, and I'm looking for sort of the place to start, right? There's this whole method that you've just outlined, but like, what is some of the first things that we're looking at here? It sounds like it could possibly be sort of deciding and getting clear on what it is that we want. And then you can use that to set boundaries and do some of this other stuff. But I'd just be curious, like where you start that process.
So I call that work dreamscaping. Now, most people come to me, I work typically with entrepreneurs or executives, leaders, often with people in the service and coaches, consultants, strategists, OBMs, people whose jobs are to help other people elevate their lives and their businesses, not exclusively, but that tends to be what it is. But my work is really unique because I'm not a business coach. I'm a transformational coach. I'm a success coach. So I really, really focus on making sure that your life is functioning at its highest level, because I don't believe our businesses can if our life doesn't. So even if you are a corporate executive, and I have several corporate executive clients, it's the same thing, which is a little bit of a rewiring for those folks, but we dreamscape when they come to me. In an ideal world, if you had everything you wanted and there were no barriers, and there was money wasn't an object and location wasn't an object and all of those things went away, what would you build? Who would you be? What would your life look like? And it's really fun to sort of see people do that dream. You can watch their eyes sort of light up a little bit and maybe go into a little back of their head, and they start to imagine and dream. And then we go, okay, now which of these things are actually achievable? Often, in many cases, much of that is achievable with, a clear plan and some hard work, but we don't think it is because we don't look at the middle point. We don't look at that path. And so we start with that, and then we break it down into small intentional steps and just start building.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'd be curious. So for those sort of people, it sounds like a lot of them are already sort of high achieving, right? And I'd be curious if you get into sort of, or if you find that many of them have sort of like lost their vision, because it seems like to get to be an executive at a place, or to start your own business, or to do some of these roles, right? You had to have at some point had some sort of dream or something that you're like pushing towards or whatnot. So I'd be curious if that's sort of the common path you see, and related to that, if you've been able to see common threads around what kind of knocks people off that path so that they don't have that vision anymore.
I find most people put self-imposed ceilings on themselves. They decide, whether knowingly or not, that they can only go so far, they can only do so much. Or even if they are super big dreamers, even if they, I work with a bunch of accountants, that's really random. Even if they know they see the path to partnership, they want to be partners, the company lays that out very clearly, the speed with which they get there, or how joy-filled their life can be once they get there. They can't imagine that, or, I'll have to sacrifice everything to do that. Those things are not true. You may be a really successful entrepreneur, and maybe you've hit that 6-figure mark or the mid 6-figure mark, and you think, wow, this is as good as it, you block yourself. I'm a big fan of Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, if you all are familiar with that. And we often will just put these self limits on ourselves. We'll sabotage ourselves and not be able to get to that next level. So what I help folks do is they are high achieving. They are ready to go, but somehow they've hit some sort of ceiling and they don't know how to crack it open and get to the next phase of their life.
Yeah. I would be curious if someone hasn't like dreamed big, or maybe they do, and it's maybe similar to what you had before you had this major transformation of just like, I just want the house and kids and to be married and to have a 6-figure income, and then I'll be happy. Or maybe they've already achieved that and they're not happy. That's like, how do you kind of help them like dream bigger, or what if they don't want to dream bigger?
Yeah. I want to be really clear about that. I am not here to tell anybody how big their dreams should be.
Yeah.
And I also believe very firmly that those things shift regularly. Like, I wanted to have children. I wanted to be a mother desperately. Super grateful for that. I wanted to stay. I worked part-time. I owned my own business. I wanted to be home with them when they were little. Those were choices I made. And I knew, we can have it all, but we can't have it all at the same time. So we have to say no to things in order to say yes to other things. And this is part of that brave method approach. Those are the 3 R's, right? Okay, well, if I want this, what do I have to give up to have it? What is worth it? Right. And then we want to constantly go back and, is this still what I want? Do I want to try something new? Do I want to build something new? I often have people look at their pain points. what hurts? What doesn't feel good?
Mhm.
Is it your finances? Is it the home you live in? Is it how many clients you serve? Is it how you're spending your time each day? What is it? And that's where we start. I love to start from that negative, that this is not working. Well, what would make it work? What would be better? How do we build that?
Yeah, I've noticed sort of in my own life and with a lot of the people around me that are high achieving and whatnot, there comes a point where, sort of like you were talking about, they've had some sort of vision and then they've achieved most of it, or some sort of goal where they've hit, that goal, and then haven't really mapped out anything beyond that, and then start flailing a little bit. I'm personally very guilty of this, but I'd be curious, sort of, as you see people sort of moving through these different like transitions and ideas, resistance against sort of changing the path if they feel that the path no longer fits. And the reason I ask that is because I've done it, right? I've been there where I'm like, oh, I've achieved this thing, and the next milestone is X plus Y dollars income or whatever else. And then I go, I don't know that that's right. But then some other part of my brain is saying like, no, this is the plan. I'm like, I don't know if I like this plan anymore. I'd just be curious what you've seen on that front.
Yeah. All sorts of things. And it's very normal behavior. We may decide we want something and then realize that we don't. I'll give you a great example. I have a client who does DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And she was building this really big company. And then was like, whoa, hold on. Like if I have this really big company, I don't have as much freedom as I want to have. I can't just take the day off if I'm in the mood. I don't really want to manage all of these people. So we went from this really big picture vision to bringing it back in smaller. And then when that got really good, and I want to say that, you hit your goals. This is not a mountain that we climb and we get to the summit and we put our flag and we're just fucking done. That is not the way this works. Like there's always another summit. It doesn't have to be huge, but what do you want to do next?
Yeah.
And so once that space got really comfortable, she went, okay, I have this other idea and this other dream and I want to build it, but I don't want to manage it. So what does that look like? So she builds this side to her, adjacent to her current business, and hires the right team to manage it. And it's fucking gangbusters, right? But that she could never have gotten there from point A. Progress is not linear. So it took a lot of reassessment and moving through all of these different spaces to go, wait, how about that? And you can dream big, and then you want to be honest about what in those dreams maybe do you not want. Like I don't know how much you guys do human design, but I'm a projector in human design. And by nature, I cannot burn myself out. I only function well when I have a good support system, when I work probably no more than 4 or 5 hours a day. I work really hard those 4 or 5 hours a day. So I have to have a good map in front of myself. What am I building? What do I want to do? How am I spending this time? And I know for a fact, if I overdo it, I'm going to be cashed for a couple of days. I'm not going to be useful. So self-care is an oxygen mask there. If I manage my schedule and my time better, it allows me to be much more high functioning, serve my clients, my family, my community in a much better way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of want to switch gears, since you are the person to talk to when it comes to bravery. I'd be curious, how would you distinguish that from maybe similar terms like risk taking or courage?
Yeah, excellent question. Bravery and courage are often synonymous.
Right.
Risk is a totally different thing. But I will say that risk is self-defined, just like success, just like happiness, just like everything else. Right. So when I say, and then you introduced me as the founder of the Everyday Brave Revolution, what I mean is that when we choose bravely on purpose, we start to choose bigger, win bigger, and it's contagious. But what is brave to you today may not be the same thing that's brave to you tomorrow. It's probably not the same thing that's brave to Donovan. Some days, the bravest thing we can do is get out of bed. Some days it's brave to go on a podcast. Some days it's brave to make a sales call, or to write a website page, or to leave your house, or to ask for a divorce, or to write a book or decide you're going to take the afternoon off and read a book, right? Like everything counts. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, fuck it, I'm going to have chocolate. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, today I'm going to pick an apple. But it changes all the time. And there are so many different ways each day that you can choose bravely. So your level of risk isn't related necessarily. When we do some of these more obviously bigger, brave things, there are perhaps some risks. What if I make a fool of myself? What if they don't like me? What if I sound dumb? You know, what if I make a mistake? But again, if you do that, when we talked about this at the onset of the conversation, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the best thing that can happen? And how do I feel about those things? Risk mitigates itself a little bit. Maybe you are willing to risk looking foolish if the best thing that could happen is people fucking love it. Right. And they want more. And you get that feedback that this is excellent. Gosh, I want to hear you on more podcasts. You should do more videos, whatever it is.
Yeah. So let me make sure I'm tracking right. But it sounds like to me, risk is sort of more of this just like calculation of outcomes, right? It's like, this is the risk of something. This is what's going to happen. The bravery piece is much more around the work towards how you're feeling, right? The emotional sort of piece that you have to grapple with to get things done, regardless of the risk, right? Regardless of what the outcomes of the particular task are. It's more about how you're interacting with yourself.
Exactly. And the world around you. It is contagious. You know, one of my favorite things about, particularly I host the Brave House podcast, is folks who regularly listen to the show. When they do something in their life that feels brave, they message me. I gave a presentation at work today and it felt so brave. Or I went in, I have one listener who I just love. She's come out of a religious organization, come out of the closet, has never had a job, has never known anyone who had an executive position. And all she wanted to do was work in a bookstore. That felt like total freedom to her. And she said, I went into my favorite local bookstore and I applied for a job today. And I just wanted you to know I was brave.
Wow.
Right?
I love that. That's so sweet.
So it's beautiful.
It is. Yeah. I think of my niece who's about to turn 7 in a couple weeks. When she was growing up, she had like selective mutism. So she would just like totally freeze up in social settings outside of like people she didn't know. And it took her and my sister going to like a child therapist to learn how to be brave and to acknowledge that she still has the fear and it's okay.
That's right.
But like before she would like freeze or cry or just like freak out. And obviously there's not really much of a risk of dying if you talk to a person,
but it may
for
feel that way
her
to her
experience-
internally.
Yeah,
We want to
absolutely, her
validate
experience.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Her experience was like in that intense for her and she's learned to overcome it and she's so much outgoing. Now I'm so proud of her that she's like she started doing dance classes a few years ago. I think it was for 4th or 5th birthday. I bought her like a month of dance lessons and she sat on the floor for like the whole month. and then like at the very last class, my sister was like gonna pull her out of class because she's like not doing anything. She like stands up and like does maybe a move, doesn't do the whole class, but she like progressively, and then like the next month, like she still wasn't doing much, maybe like one move here and there, and then she starts to do a little bit more. And so my sister, and now she's done a few dance recitals, and so she's come a long way.
I love that. And I really think that's a beautiful analogy for how many of us move through life and we don't give ourselves the credit for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes just the showing up and not engaging is enough.
Yeah.
And to know, you know, that you are deeply and truly not broken if you don't want to talk, if you don't want to dance, if it frightens you. But if you keep showing up,
she kept
you went,
showing up.
Maybe I'll try that little thing. Maybe I can take 2 more steps in. I'll spin just a little, right? This is a beautiful way to think about however it is that you're moving through your life, whatever you want, because she obviously wanted it.
She did.
She just didn't know how to get it. Right. And so she had to figure out each of those steps. And that's where I say, if you show up, the steps will appear. Yeah. The next option on how to move closer to this thing you want, it will show up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love this, like breaking apart sort of this just like risk and bravery piece, because I think a lot of people get them kind of intertwined in a way that's like, okay, I need to take more risks, but it's not necessarily going to serve you in the way that you need, depending on the situation. Like most of us need more bravery, not more risk, right?
Right. In my opinion, yes. Yeah.
You can ride a motorcycle with no helmet a bunch of times, and like that's probably not going to serve you especially well.
I do not think it does. Yeah, I
Not a
do
good
not
idea.
think that serves you. I think that's a death wish. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that'll increase your risk, but I don't think that it's really broken out this way that often, or at least I haven't heard them split this way nicely.
Mhm.
So I just think it's a really nice piece to keep in mind, that we don't really need to increase risk. For some people, they might need to take a little bit more risk to sort of achieve the life
Sure.
they want. But in the most common scenario, what we need is a little more bravery to overcome the things that we're not pushing through.
And just to be clear for folks who are listening who maybe are, if you are somebody who has a lot of self-limiting beliefs, or you've come from a background where your thoughts and your opinions are discarded, I understand that for a lot of folks, bravery feels risky.
Mhm.
But what I want you to understand is that the risk is really quite minimal, and the people who love you the most will see you coming out of that chrysalis, essentially, right?
Mhm.
And they may be confused at first, and they may not understand, but if you follow, take what you want from the Brave method, if you follow that, if you get clear on what you want, if you set some boundaries, if you show up honestly, they will come with you. They will get there with you if you give them the chance. People are amazed at how many decisions they make for other people.
Mhm.
Like people pleasers, their behavior often strips away autonomy and choice from somebody else, because you decide for them what will make them happy, right? We want to please them before they even know it's a problem, because what if they don't like us if we fuck it up, right? When you stop doing that, everybody else at the table gets a bit of a voice, and you get to rise up together on it.
Yeah. I love it. Great.
Thanks.
All right. So, would you like to plug anything before we wrap up, Heather?
Little plug.
Yeah.
I will just say this. I do a weekly live show called Brave in Action. You can find it on YouTube, Instagram, and also through Facebook if you are in my Facebook group, Brave on Purpose. I share, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes worth of a way that you can put your bravery in action each week. I would love to have you join us for that. If you go to vickeryandco.com/social, you'll see how you can sign up for that, how you can get updates on it. And then if you are in that coach, consultant, strategist, OBM space,
Mhm.
I am just launching what I call the Brave Circle, which is a membership community for these people who give so much of their time and their energy to help other people elevate their lives, but don't have the community that they want. It's way more in depth than that. I would love to actually just talk to you about it. So if you're curious, if you kind of vibed with me and you're into what you're hearing, maybe come and check out a couple of our Brave in Action live shows. Follow me on social media, and then we can talk about whether or not the Brave Circle is a good fit for you.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the description for anyone who's interested to reach out to Heather and have that conversation.
Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Great. And thank you everyone for tuning in this week. We appreciate you. And if you got something out of this episode today, be sure to write us a comment or something that you were proud of being brave about. Tell us about it. We want to hear it. And yeah, if you'd like to help us spread the happiness in the world, share, like, subscribe, all the things that help pass this along. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and then go and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you get notified when the next video comes out. If you check out in the description below, go to my website where you can get my free fast and easy guide to stress relief. Thanks again for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.